Hello and welcome to the director's commentary for A Touch of Vengeance. My name is Jordan-Kane Lewis. I directed, edited, produced, shot the entire project. And yeah, I was going to be talking about a few bits of trivia and I guess the process of me actually creating the film and like some of the thoughts and ideas behind it. So we open up with this like really glitchy opening. This was done just so it kind of feels like a B movie and like a film that you might find. So if someone does stumble upon this, and let's say if I have future films and they're looking back at my, my first feature or first few films, it's going to feel as if they've stumbled upon this or found like a gem, you could say. But yeah, more just to be like, oh, it's ties in with the idea that it's like a found camcorder, which ties into some of the tropes that you're gonna see, or like what Marcus is going to be using to film his victims. So this intro is actually setting up the premise that, well, it's actually setting up so the audience expectations. So we want the audience to not question necessarily what Lucas is doing. So we need him to have like in the opening a job which is like on the extreme end, one that he typically probably wouldn't do, but just so the audience knows that he's capable of what he's doing. So any decisions that he does later on in the film, whether that be the right decision or the wrong decision or questionable decision, he's still going to be like trusted. Like the audience should feel like they can trust the character, which I think after the fact does work. That was my idea going into the process. Originally, the actual edit, the first edit of this was completely different. It was a lot slower. It would start off with him talking, and it wasn't interspliced with him going to the location. They were actually separate scenes, so it would be him in the restaurant. There's actually a bit more dialogue. You see him receive the gun and the money, and then it would be the walk-in, and then it'd be through the restaurants, and then it'd be through the kitchen, and then it'd be this shot, the actual drug den. But we'll see him like, snorting drugs this time, and there's a load of alternative shots. But this felt like after the fact, and when it came to obviously the editing, it was better actually just to speed up the film, because you don't want to bore the audience. So yeah, some of the muzzle flash here look a little bit odd. It's just because I was trying to make the effect as if it was step printing, which is this blur effect that you see in this like jittery effect where you crank down the shutter speed and then you're shooting like 5 frames a second or so. I just randomly choose the amount of frames I'm using and shutter speed just to get different effects each time. But I think consistently, I think it was 5 frames. And then like a low shutter speed. I think I was using shutter angle actually because I was shooting on the Blackmagic. I'm pretty sure before this you couldn't, before the other updates you can actually change. I know you can change it now on the with the new gyro update that came out, which is actually amazing. And for my next film, Nothing Goes, it's all going to be handheld anyway, so I think adding a little bit of smoothness to the shots is going to be wicked. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using one of them like fishing rigs, the small rigs like holders. I completely forgot what it's called. But yeah, this actual scene was probably the longest overall time in editing. So probably for like the first month I was trying to get this right. A lot of rotoscoping around posters and creating new collages and stuff, just so because I didn't have permission for that poster. The poster in the background is actually a Peaky Blinders one, but I couldn't actually get proper permission for it. Even though I did write to them, I did get a response, but they just never got back to me on the permission. But yeah, so I had to rotoscope and create like a fake mask. But yeah, this was like one of the actual last days of shooting this train station scene. But yeah, this is probably one of my favourite shots of the film. I had to obviously get a zoom lens so I could blow out the background. background, but it was actually quite funny because Harry, who's my sound guy, had to run into the car while we were like trying to hold half the equipment in the middle of this like not so busy train station, but it was still like it must have been like 6 or 7, so there's still quite a few people around. I think this all these this is part of the pickup shots. We shot for 23 days and then probably had like 4 days of pickups. But what I mean by pickups is one day was actually like probably like an hour of reshoots with Lucas and only Lucas, and then Paul Jonah, who plays Lucas, and then yeah, we then just had a little cameo from James. He's one of my friends. He's been in a lot of makes a little cameo in like each one of my films, or sometimes helps. But yeah, we've got a nice we're basically he's going to a new location. This is his like safe house, so multiple people could have lived here. But yeah, we obviously don't hear that until Frank rings. But yeah, we're just trying to make the audience feel like Lucas, so like he doesn't know where he is. It's a new environment, etc. There's a nice little shot there of the bed that comes into play later. And yeah, we had so many different versions of this scene. This scene actually went a little bit longer. Issue is it just didn't need to be that long. I feel like, yeah, it's true, in it. You create the film 3 times. So like the first time is in the writing process, which is actually probably the most freeing, and it's when the ideas could be like as big as possible and outrageous as possible. It's probably like the best version of the film. And the second version is whatever you capture in production, and it can be complete like chaos. Like you could capture things that are like you never intended to, shoot, but it could be better for the film. And then the final stage, which is the post production, and then like you have to proper delete some of your favorite scenes and stuff. But it's just going to benefit the film. It does a little homage to Depicted Illusion. Got a little scene from the film being played in the background. I feel like I'm going to do that with a lot of my films. Just play my short films, which I've created, just in the background. It saves getting permission from like different filmmakers and stuff. I could always get permission though, to be honest. But yeah, a little bit of trivia here is the club that we were meant to be shooting in, and we were having conversations with, it didn't exist. So we were having a conversation with someone who actually didn't exist. So we turned up to this club, and thankfully the owner let us shoot in there. It was busy and it was pretty packed, but it was early on in the night, so we got a little bit lucky. He could have turned us away completely, but yeah. So we're starting to see a lot more step printing now. I may as well elaborate on the reasons and like the rules I set out when using step printing. So like obviously filmmakers, they don't tend to use step printing for like the whole duration of the film or throughout the film. I decided to use it for 2 reasons. A, I think it would benefit the film, and B, it makes it stand out between different films within the same genre at this like budget and things. So yeah, the rules for the reasons of using step printing was in scenes of chaos and then to get into the character's head. So what I mean by scenes of chaos could be like walking through the streets, it's really busy and it's making the character anxious, or the character's being really angry, or for instance in the case of Leona, or Maria, played by Leona Clark, is she's drunk, so that's her mindset. Oh, this scene was actually horrible to shoot. I think we shot it about 3 times, and then obviously directly through the camera each time. We had to actually cut around seeing us, because each time we'd flip the camera, you'd see me standing on the other side, because I was kind of guiding him where to place the camcorder. I think we did have some tape on the floor. But yeah, we'll let that scene play out a little bit longer. Originally it did cut a little bit earlier, However, I did like to see the blood on his knuckles, and then also the rip on the back of Leona's top, because that ties into a later scene when Leona. I keep getting the characters mixed up with the actual actors, but yeah, Maria, her top's been ripped, and then yeah, like when she comes back to the safe house with Lucas for the first time, we actually re-see that ripped top, and I feel like after you've seen both scenes, it gives you that feeling again of like, if you're the audience the first time watching it, when you saw that scene. So yeah, we're just actually seeing Lucas just clean, and this is like what he would be normally doing on his downtime when he's not killing people or cleaning up bodies, etc. I'm just gonna get a drink. Oh, it's actually really freezing today, and I don't know why I decided to wear a bunch of tops just before recording this. Because I shut all my windows, and it's the start of like October when I'm recording this, 10 days out before the release on Amazon. But I decided to wear a bunch of jumpers, and it's actually getting really hot now. So I might have to like take my top off in a few seconds. What I mean by top is just the jumper I'm wearing. But yeah. I don't know. This scene we shot this a few different ways, but this was shot between the same montage scene that we just previously saw. This was just before Leona was on set, so we obviously shot things all over the place. But I'd say for the first week, it was pretty like scattered. Like some scenes were like a 2-hour shoot, and it was only a day shooting. When other scenes were like, on some days we were shooting all day, maybe 12 hours. Not with the actors obviously, but with like me and Harry, and then maybe one other crew member. So some days were really long, but on other days were like really short, which was a nice change of pace. I did scatter out the days, so we were shooting over 23 days with like I think I previously said 4 days of pickup shots. But they weren't all like clumped together, which I think benefits a low budget production, because normally with a low budget you have to shoot over weeks and months, like shooting the days that you can with the actors you can. Whereas quite kind of fortunate for this, because when I was setting out like I already have the days, and then when I was casting people, I approached theatre groups and stuff. So a lot of the actors are half are like non-actors or like amateur actors, and then the other half are theatre actors. So yeah, a bunch of like a mixed bag. But I feel like I know the leads were all actual actors, like they've been in multiple productions. It kind of contrasts with the other actors, but I guess it allows them to stand out, and kind of highlights their performance, which I think is really good. I'd say it's quite funny is I wrote Paul Jones' character Lucas completely different to how he actually portrays him, but I do think that's the way that Lucas, Paul actually portrays Lucas is to the benefit of the film. Kind of, I don't know, a different take on this kind of character. Always had him as like the grey man, like, or what a lot of YouTubers say, a lot of film critics say. I think I watched the Kino Club, is it? And he talks about the me characters, like the lone character who's hardened by society and stuff. Whereas I think he's kind of the opposite. He's kind of got a little charm to the character, and is a lot more open, I guess. But I feel like it actually benefits the film, because it makes it more believable that the decisions he makes with Leona's character Maria would make sense for him being a character. This was actually the highest visual effects shot. Just him walking, Marcus walking out of the car, because it was actually a hotel, and I had to like mask all the logos and get rid of all the boards and fix up a window. Here also, if you look to the left, that wall's like completely blank. There's actually a chair there, which was a complete continuity issue, because the chair's actually here on the right, which you can see in the wide. But this is why I shot everything on a tripod, because I knew in post I could clean up, whereas like obviously moving shots, it's a lot more difficult to clean up. But yeah, this made me really good at cleaning up, I guess, which is stuff that you should, you shouldn't have any issues like this when you're in production anyway, because these are things that you should notice. But because we're shooting on such a low budget, and with like, I guess, and this is my first feature, so you could say that I was completely inexperienced. I was like running before I could actually walk. Why's my TV turning off? But yeah, so like I'd say for your first feature, definitely shoot on tripods. Try to have still shots, and yeah, shoot multiple versions of coverage as well. I did do that, but obviously for a few shots I didn't. I was like, oh, now I got that in the bag. But having multiple options always helps, always benefits the you'll be helping yourself in the editing if that's what you're planning to do, a low budget feature. I mean, if you've got like a specific budget, then I could understand. Like if you've got a really tight shooting schedule and you've got specific shots, and it's not like you haven't got the luxury of shooting multiple scenes of coverage. Like I honestly didn't. But I just decided to switch up shots as much as I possibly could. But yeah, I'd say definitely just shoot on the tripod, because you can't even tell when it shoots. Like this shot here with Oddie, he's playing the boss. Like the right hand side is completely different to what the actual shot was, because there was a chair there and there's a bottle, and that end of the curtain there, it doesn't even exist. Like that was created from the top bit of the curtain, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I feel like that's probably the funnest part of the editing process, because the worst part is the sound. I really don't like sound editing. I don't know, it's just extremely time consuming. I had to re-add that piece of dialogue. Are you gonna kill me? And then here's response from the original version. So this is like, I guess this scene is a bit different to what everyone else has already seen. So I've already had an exhibition of the film where we had like 100 and something people watched film, and then obviously the film festival where we had like, I don't know, like 20 people, or maybe like 10 to 20 people watched the film. And so like they've watched a particular version of the film, and I felt like later on that dialogue obviously comes back up, because obviously it's the themes for revenge, things happening again, repeating again. But I wanted to also tie in like the idea that conversations would happen again, the same kind of dialogue will keep repeating itself. So with the character Leo, which is Marcus's son within the film, played by Albert Cash, he's actually going to repeat or mimic a similar change or a different kind of change that Maria's actually having. So like he gets captured obviously by Maria's character. Spoilers if you haven't seen the film, but yeah, you should go watch it because it should be available on Amazon now. But yeah, so now he's this is actually Ollie's warehouse. I've shot multiple shots here, obviously in different rooms, so you can't actually tell which are the same rooms and not. You can't tell it's the same warehouse, sorry. But yeah, here we get, if you look in the background, you're actually going to see Maria's reaction to things. I had to try to keep this scene really short, but this was actually really a pain in the arse to edit. Pardon me. Paul was really laughing, and everyone else was laughing at this scene because this actor was really funny. But yeah, he kept staring in the camera, so I had to like cut around him. So that's why it's like a Frankenstein kind of edit in this scene particularly. Got a nice shot here. We see Maria's reaction. See Lucas, that little look back. This is what I mean by him bringing a different kind of character to him, because it's kind of, I'm not saying he's concerned about like, I don't know, it's implying that he could be like a little bit concerned and just checking up on her. Obviously their relationship's just at the start, but it helps justify some of the change. Since obviously I didn't have the luxury of time, I couldn't really like tell too long of a story. But yeah, this is what I mean by tying into the previous scene with the ripped top, when the rape scene was happening. So when she takes off the top, we cut to the back of her, and then yeah, you can see, obviously the top being ripped and everything, and then she tries to pull it up. He's also tied in, with the saying that you can stay in the bedroom. And obviously that relates to a different conversation in the future. Yeah, there's a lot of like scenes of, I think it's pronounced Traeger's pistol, which is like you set up a premise or you show a shot of like an object, and then that has to come in, or it will come into play later on in the film. So I was trying to set up as many of them, but without that being like, the story. I recently watched Bullet Train, where like that was the entirety of the story. That's like, it's just a Traeger's gun, like it's the setups, it's just constant mini setups with payoffs and stuff. But yeah, I feel like it helps the audience feel as if they've got like a payoff, if that makes any sense. This was shot in pitch black, this scene here. I think we had like an LED light or two just maxed out, just so we can get a bit of light peering through the window. So these were shot on completely different days. I think this was like one of two versions of this shot, just because obviously shooting in January, but you see, we were quite lucky. It didn't rain that much. It only rained on one day, which was actually the most important day, which was the Lucas's death scene. I don't know, it just heightened the environment, heightened the emotions of that particular scene. And then yeah, this scene's all meant to be about like cleansing, kind of like an homage to Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, I did have a lot more like overt homages, but it just made the film really goofy. Like when she looking for the guns here, when Maria's looking and she finds a pistol. Originally she was gonna like pretend to shoot the camera and things, and I was like, it's just too goofy. And like thankfully I was able to save it in the edit. But yeah, like the smoke grenades and things. It's pretty funny. There's my little homage there. Homage. There's my little cameo. I'm actually the guy behind the counter there. I'm not sure if that was my dad actually walking. Or that might have actually been an actual customer maybe. But yeah, this was one of the pickup shots. We see him got all the clothes and the food. That was actually the start of COVID, I believe. So like, there wasn't really a lockdown, but people stopped going out as much, I think. Lucas's reverse is actually part of the reshoots as well. This shot here. It actually looks completely the same than he did. I think his beard might be a little bit bigger, but I don't know. It was perfect anyway. It ties in with the second shot anyway, when he walks into the living room. I let the actors keep their clothes as well, so thankfully they didn't get rid of them. But yeah. What I did for the costumes is I went with each actor to Primark and literally just bought some clothes. So I bought like 2 sets of clothes that the characters would wear, a main outfit, and then a coat. Obviously, Lucas only needs 1 outfit, since he's at the end of his journey. Because in a way, this story is actually the origins of Maria, and Maria needed like 3 sets of clothes. So we see her morph into 3, from 3 different people. So she has the first set, which is her own clothes, which is like her own, identity. Second set of clothes, which is, it's got to be more innocent looking. So we showed that she's like an infant within this world, the criminal world or whatever. And then the third set of clothes is where she become hardened, and it should mimic Lucas's clothes. So we clearly have 3 stages of her, her development, and that goes the same for Marcus, since Marcus has like 2 journeys, where he just becomes a bit more professional and a bit more trustworthy. So his dad's trusting him a lot more. So this is it's cut to the future. The film is non-linear, so it does jump between the future and the past. I believe this is the second instance after the train station of the non-linear elements. Originally, this was a really short scene which would actually appear earlier on in the film, and then actually this next shot here, which cuts into Frank's house, would actually be later on. I was filming at one of my brother's friend's house at the time. This is all primarily shot around Dronfield and Sheffield, but mainly Dronfield. Got a nice little cut there, cut away. See the whack. You actually see the hammer there as well. Some crazy masking there by me. Yeah, I really like this location. Thankfully the light was just like directly above him, so we didn't have to actually light things, but I did have to do a lot of hiding through masking because of the glass in the background. This torture method is similar to, it's like an homage to the thrillers, the South Korean thrillers that really inspired this film. So like there's multiple films that completely inspired this, but the main one would be Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. But obviously a lot of people were drawing conclusions to Dead Man Choose, which is 100% true, with some of the imagery like the gas mask and things. Yeah, I don't know, there's like multiple different things that have inspired the film, but nothing you could directly say that's like comparable to this, unless I've completely missed a film which is like really similar to this. But yeah, just like a British thriller. So I used to box a lot, so I wanted to obviously add a scene in boxing. At the time, was actually, I kind of just made the decision in December that I was going to quit. I wanted to like allude to Marcus's past, where he's definitely been involved in boxing and things. So saying like his backstory a little bit, like this boxer definitely, this trainer knows he's a boxer, and he just wants him to help the other guys, but also setting up some of Leo's story. He's like, this is the first time we're actually introduced to him, other than through the earlier pieces of dialogue. But he's a bit of a wimp. He's completely different to his dad. He looks different. He just acts different. His dad holds himself, a bit more like, I don't know. He looks a bit more like tougher. A bit more like, you could say, chavvy. Whereas Leo, it just looks a bit more like a wimp, like a nerd. Just trying to contrast each other. And then we've got a little bit of dialogue here, kind of setting up the dynamics between everyone. Like everyone's trying to get on, Marcus's good side. Leo's not involved in the conversation at all. He's just in the background, but he's still doing his dad's wishes. Like he's bringing him along. It might have been, if it was to read this scene was a pain in the arse to actually shoot, because we had 2 hours to shoot, and originally we had like 4 hours to shoot, but we were shooting in the time of like the sunset. That's the time that we had to actually shoot the scene, and that means we only had like an hour of sunlight really. So it was actually dreadful. The lights were actually causing flicker as well, but you can't tell. Only in the nighttime scenes. That's why we had to cut it short. But yeah, like here you can see a bit of flicker, but I don't know. It looks really cool anyway. But originally, yeah, Leo would get a call and then pass it on to his dad. But I kind of just cut that bit of scene, like him playing on the phone and passing the phone to his dad, and then dad getting the phone call, and just jumped straight into the phone call. So this is what I mean by like shaving down the film. But yeah, shaving down the film so it just runs a lot smoother. You don't need to see that, passing of the phone. It's kind of like when they say student films always like, or like amateur films always show like, oh, if someone's waking up, they're gonna see the phone, and then they're gonna sit up, and then they're gonna, there's gonna be different shots for each one, which isn't necessary. You may as well just show them. Or phone rings, but then you just linger on the person maybe, and he's just like really tired and he's trying to wake up, and he picks up the phone, but then you don't have a different shot for it. So I believe this was the main reason why Paul Jonah decided to take on the role as of Lucas. He really liked this dialogue scene. It looks really nice as well. In colour, it looks really nice as well. Obviously the film's in black and white, but yeah, at the time that decision was still kind of up in the air whether it's going to be black and white or not. I decided to go with it just because I felt like I was ill experienced in colour correcting. The budget for the film was incredibly low, and therefore I didn't want to pay for colour correction when overall I didn't really want to spend 500 quid a day on colour correcting. But the main thing was I felt like it gave obviously more production value. The black and white does, definitely. I do have one version that I sent into college, which was actually done 2 months after filming, which is like a 90-minute version of the film, and I didn't have time to colour correct, so I just did a basic colour correct. And you can completely tell the difference. One looks super amateur, the other one looks really like, I feel like this looks a lot more professional. So like on set, because I was still like 50-50, I was always keeping in mind though contrast lighting, so I was always shooting near windows and using curtains and stuff to diffuse light and things like that. So I was always keeping in mind that I could always flip this to black and white, and if it was going to be in colour, it was going to feel very like like a noir, like a detective kind of film. And if it was to be used in colour anyway. So you got to remember, black and white always looks better if it's a really contrasting image. And then there's Leona right there, or Maria crying to the story. I feel like it's because obviously he's talking about his mom being raped in front of him, and obviously Maria as a character, it's gonna bring up the memories. And then we've got a nice scene here, driving up, we see someone with a bit of blood, so something's going on, and the music sounds really good here. There's Ben. He played Nicholas Light in Depicted Illusion, which was the short film I did before this. His brother was actually playing Johnny, in the drug den earlier on. This was probably the most fun we had while shooting, but it was absolutely freezing. All the actors and all the crew, including me, we were boiling because we were, screaming and stuff, and I was trying to get everyone to scream all the time. Obviously, certain scenes we couldn't. But yeah, we had so many different versions of this. But yeah, this was really not like properly choreographed. We kind of knew what we wanted a little bit, but a lot of it was still on the fly. Throughout the whole process, I didn't have a shooting script. I kind of knew I just had to shoot for coverage. But yeah, I'd recommend having a shooting script, but it's just because I kind of knew the shots I wanted anyway. The main thing it came down to was, the best shots for the scene in the edit. So I did have way more coverage than I needed. So for instance, that fight scene could have gone on twice as long. But what's the point? It kind of loses its wow factor probably like halfway through, after the first like step printing and knock back, and then Lucas gets back up, so there's no point in dragging out. The film needs to be as short as possible anyway, and just so it keeps the attention of the audience. So this dialogue scene tends to linger on this shot a lot from behind Maria. This is because this version, this take of this scene was the only version of Lucas's, Paul's reaction. So like, it was so different, this take compared to the others, that I couldn't use that take with the other takes, if that makes any sense. So like the way he's hurt, etc. Like for this, I was able to use it, but like when Maria comes back, you'll notice that it just lingers on one shot for a while. One thing that benefits it though is the scene itself is mainly Lucas's scene, so it's him talking, it's his reaction and things to the situation. So yeah, so we make sure we've got the reverse just before we cut to this long version of like this long take. There's no cuts now between now and then the end of the scene. Just because I really preferred his reaction to this scene. I do cut this scene shorter. How many times am I going to say scene? But yeah, I do cut this scene a little short, just because I thought a reaction. Because originally in the script, after this scene, she gets really excited and she hugs him, and then his ribs are hurting, so he goes ah, and then I just thought in the edit, like, it's too much of a change too quick, and I've managed to edit around all the other scenes to feel like it's progressing really well. I didn't want to ruin it here by progressing it too much, if that makes any sense. But yeah, we're over like halfway now, so 20 minutes left of the film, and I feel like if you're at this point now, you should feel as if it's being paced fairly well. If you look really, 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 really carefully, you can see like a little white thing within his top. That's actually I use lavs on every single actor. So for the scene, I'd shoot the main audio and then lav audio. But you can't even tell. It looks like it's part of his costume there. I've cut back to the future. I just needed her to find the recording device really quick, so we just have it like, if it's his house, he's gonna not be scared about using it. He's probably gonna be watching these on the TV and stuff. Originally it was paused on a different victim, but there's no point. This is way quicker. Plus the house that we were filming at, the TV didn't have red, white, yellow, the RGB cables for the old analog recording devices. Funny little fact here as well, the smoke machine broke that we brought, so this is actually a vape creating the smoke. But yeah, little homage to Dead Man Shoes, and I feel as if I was more inspired by Old Boy for that scene. There is a scene where he wears a gas mask. But yeah, no, Dead Man's Shoes. And now this is where we see that dialogue earlier, which I mentioned earlier, which was to do with Maria in a diner. This gets like repeated, so again, perpetuating the ideas of revenge, repeating itself. We also noticed in that scene, in that shot there's actually a golf. There's a fish bowl with no fish, which is obviously relating back to when Lucas first got into the safe house and there was a fish tank with no fish. All these little things, like things repeating themselves, like even by Maria's mannerisms, they were meant to be mimicking Lucas's. So you're probably not going to notice it, but like the way that she turns the cigarette lighter in conversations and stuff, like how she fidgets and stuff was meant to be the same. Also, we actually might see this here. So if you look, well, you can see it here. If you look at her hands, and you go back to the dialogue, you go back to the scene where Lucas first meets Maria. The way he's fidgeting is exactly the same. So this shot lingers on this just because the dialogue fits that shot a lot better than the face scene. Obviously we were filming in a cafe here, so we were relying on the lavs, because obviously there's so much background noise and you need something so specific. I love Raw as well. Like the highlights were actually completely blown out. Not intentionally, but just because the white was so strong. So when you turn it into Reg 709, it looks really blown out. In the B-Raw film, it looked fine, even after color correction. But like if you switch it to Reg 709, just completely blown out. So like this flat, we actually had to tidy up. We had we were filming at like one of my brother's mates' flats, David Hancock, and he said, yeah, we could film here. When we got there, it was completely different to like what I wanted for the film. So he just let us completely use his flat for basically 2 weeks. So we added things we wanted, like such as the plants. That was like a last minute thing. I was like, you know what? I'll just grab some plants, make it look a bit different, a bit more green. Really benefited the film. Added stuff to a scene which otherwise wouldn't have looked nice, which I'm probably going to do for the next film as well. And then obviously you could add a little bit of like an homage and things to do for Lucas. Homage to Leon the Professional, obviously. Obviously similar genre. But just this is a lot darker. But yeah, we've seen things like progress throughout the day. Some of these scenes are actually just Maria by herself. We did have a lot more scenes with the little Polaroid camera, but issue is it just was too cheesy again. Got a nice little scene there of the fish grouping up together, which is kind of mimicking their relationship at this point. Oh, pardon me. But yeah, this is a nice scene. I really like this shot. I love the environment as well. The guy who was actually running this place at the time, he's recently retired as well, and he couldn't make the screening of the film, so I'll make sure I send him a link. But yeah, you can tell this shot's a little bit different to the one that I uploaded online, which was the clip. At the time, I hadn't finished editing, but I wanted to get release out like some little clips of the film, and you can see this is a lot like a nice tighter shot, but it's still that central composing of shots, which I tend to do. I tend to like compose instead of thirds. I'll try to compose in towards the center, and then if I'm trying to make something a little bit more interesting, then I'll use the thirds. But leading lines and things towards your attention to the characters. two different versions of that. That was the best one because the pyrotechnics were hidden. He even supplied the glass and stuff. We had to supply the cans and that. Not transition there. This Thai restaurant that we shot in was honestly beautiful. All the interior looks like two different huts or like buildings, and like there's loads of stone imagery all scattered all over the place. But yeah, like this version is back to the this is the interrogation version, where I decided to linger on one nice shot, one long shot, and then slowly zoom in. Whereas the version that I showed at the festival and my exhibition had two different intersplice shots, which was, you know, a close-up of Frank and then the reaction shot at the end, which is a close-up of Frank. But I decided to cut them all out. I just think it wasn't necessary, and this is actually the better version of this scene, where it feels like an interrogation scene. This is one thing I can say, which was like inspired by my idea of noir films, like an interrogation. You've got the light, which is like, you know, if you was a police officer and you was interrogating a criminal, you'd expect, you know, one of them little lamps there. But yeah, and we see the dynamics of them actually acting just like, you know, show. We see like Marcus, you know, when he's, you know, got a leg up on Frank, he's like in the center of frame, and then we see him like obviously take the drink that we saw Frank, you know, drinking earlier on in the scene. So yeah, Martin actually giving me some tips on some of the dialogue. So some of the dialogue was really cheesy, but actually helped me with this scene. One of the things he said was, perhaps I just, you know, put the note down instead of actually saying the location, which was a lot better. Nice little charming shot there. I'll tell you what, some of the establishing shots were difficult to choose, because you can shoot loads of establishing shots, but like you can only choose the right, you know, you got to choose the right establishing shots. You can't just choose like, you know, random establishing shots. Plus that establishing shot, kind of, I don't know. It's like you got the shots of the trees, the plants and stuff, but it's just two plants, and then it's like they're by themselves and they're isolated, and it's kind of mimicking what's, you know, like not mimicking, foreshadowing what's about to happen. These two shots were shot on completely different days. All of the bathtub scenes were all shot in one clump, if that makes any sense. This was actually the only day it was proper raining, so when we shot this, we went straight to the fishing location, and we did try to wait for it to stop raining, but we ended up just shooting around it and within it, and yeah, it definitely benefited the film. As you can see there, the magpie, which you've been seeing throughout the film, and you'll see like continuity areas where there's two magpies, but that was on purpose, just because it's just like a little poem. When I was a kid, and it's just always stuck with me. I don't know, I'm really superstitious about magpies, I'm not gonna lie. So if you see one, you try and always obviously look for the second one. So if you see one, it's bad luck. Therefore, when he was by himself, it was kind of like he was different, you know, bad luck. But then when he was with Maria, it was, you know, a good thing. So that's what you'd see too. How we made the how we made the knife actually stay there was with a giant magnet, taped it around Lucas, and it would just hold its position, but difficult because the magnet had like a circle bit where the knife would, like, you know, stay still in, but each time we just couldn't get the knife to actually stay in, so we had to just do the cut to cover that. originally Lucas was actually, well, Paul wanted to add a swear word, he was going to swear at Marcus as he's bleeding out on the floor, and I do have that version of the edit, but I think it's better if, it's bittersweet if we just see him like pass on, and that was like a perfect scene there, that him looking up and then tears in his eyes with the blood all down his face. Looks really good. As if his like soul's actually left him. Bit of time jumping here. We shot this a few times as well. Couldn't get it like the perfect version of this. And then Maria runs off. We shot that. I made sure to shoot that in the day when the sun was highest, just because I wanted it to be like optimistic light, as if she's running into a better future. But then we have like a little catch up of all the events that we've seen that have been scattered or out throughout, and tied with the 7 months later. It just shows you that now we're all up to date. There's going to be no more time skipping, or well, not necessarily time skipping, but a time story, non-linear elements. Yeah, that sound like really a lot of gibberish there, but yeah. So we clearly see Marcus's change here. And in that wide, we saw the girl on the left-hand side, and that ties into when Maria had Leo's phone and was texting him. And we see I'm just with a girl in the text messages earlier on. So we see their little trickery there, cutting into a bag of flour, but then cutting into vitamin B so we can sniff it. Jordan Mehmet getting her face bashed in, sadly. She was 100% down for this as well. We had a little pillar there, which you can't really see, but yeah. We had that's Andy again. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. But yeah, he's he let us use his Jaguar and blow out the window. We tried putting more explosives in the car, but to blow out the window properly, but we weren't using shatter glass, so we were just going to try to use it, blowing out an actual window, but it just didn't work, and it just blew out and blew off the door. The window did blow out, but like it obviously kept its shape. So originally we do have like tracking shots, but it was just way better with the zoom lens, and then him slowly walking into the car, and we just stuck with that little motif in this scene. So now he's driving off. This is the one scene I wish I had like a lot more time to shoot. We only had 2 hours, and when you're driving up and down, you don't realise how much time you're losing just to reset a shot. So for instance, like this shot here was probably not necessary because we see it on the outside, but we don't see like a nice clear, pulling up the gun. We only show that shot there just to show that some change in the weather, like it just started raining. You see a little bit of the aftermath. So a little bit of time's passed after they've been, after they crashed. And then poor Andy's just bleeding out. Bleeding out of his neck. Originally the blood was meant to squirt up proper on the car, but we didn't see that. It was meant to shoot outside the car. But yeah. So now he's tied in. So earlier on we saw Leo piss into a bucket. And then obviously this ties into this again. The Traeger's gun. He's setting up something that reappears later on. This is definitely like the best scene in the film. I'd say 95% of this was scripted, or at least somewhat, tested. and then and then Martin Eden was free to do whatever he wanted. So in each take he would actually be a bit more violent and a little bit more swearing. But I think we went with the third take probably. We only shot this 3 times this way. The issue is obviously as soon as we had blood involved, that was it. We had to stick with what we got. So I grabbed a few pickup shots here and there. I should have focused more on getting a lot more, different pickup shots, probably in this scene. But I was really concerned. I really wanted to get the best performance captured with Martin. So we did maybe 6 takes in total. 3 from obviously that angle, but then another 3 from different angles. Just because he was the first person we casted for the main roles, and I was really and I really didn't want to he completely invested in the film. We met up way before. I went to his house probably 3 times, and 3 times before shooting. And first time we was just talking about the film. He was really invested. He was grateful that we actually went to his house and reached out to talk about the film and stuff and the project. Then we met up probably a month before shooting, played chess, and it was just fun. He made it the process a lot easier. He also helped get Leona for the role, which I think was great. Actually benefited the film, since we were struggling to find a female actress locally, which was, we had a pretty intense scene, so after the rape scenes, it was a bit difficult to sometimes convince people, to try to come on board with the project. And the editor had said this is the second most edited scene. It's just here a long time. That's masking that blade actually wasn't spinning, and that's my favourite shot of the film. But yeah, you can see here with the blood effects and stuff, that's very B-movie-esque. So that's why I'd say the film is a B-movie, a serious B-movie, if that makes any sense, with hopefully with some style, which I haven't really spoke too much about, I don't believe. But yeah, obviously Wong Kar-wai, his films, Fallen Angels specifically, I watched, which really inspired me to mess around with step printing. Christopher Doyle being the cinematographer for Wong Kar-wai films, so probably thanking him more than anything. And then I want to thank Zach's brother for introducing me to that, because I saw a post. I believe he's doing a feature film actually next year, if I can get him up. But he's he just posts around different films and art house films, I guess. Films that might not necessarily you might overlook because there's so many films that available. And he was just posting about it. I was like, damn, that looks really stylish, and I love the colour correction, or the colour they decided to go with, and the wide angle lens shots. And I was like, yeah, it'd be really cool to add that into my film, because you don't see it that much. Yeah, you see a little magpie there. Yeah, another little Easter egg, I guess. So now we're seeing the start of, in a way, you could say this is now the start of Leo's story. So we've seen, the transformation from Maria, and now we're potentially going to see, it's alluding to the transformation of Leo. We see he's a little bit, he's crying. It's his granddad. He's having to make a decision whether he's going to leave or stay. Originally we had a Y where he hangs up the phone, he just lingers there staring out into the sea, but it just looked really stupid because there's a big banner in the background, so it was we'll have to just stick with that low angle, look it up, showing that he's got power, and he's going to be making a decision. Got this this is the last day of shooting. This was actually the final of principal photography. This was Leona's last day of shooting. This is in Birmingham. Went up and down a few times. And that's the end. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to the director's commentary for a touch of vengeance. If I was to do it again, I'd probably talk about completely different things. There's so much to I feel like I've left out. Like some of the things on the days, it's just me randomly talking about tangents, I guess. But yeah, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the filmmaking process, and I am really grateful for everyone helping making this film happen. Yeah, like even the locations, they let us get away with murder, really, and they all did it for free, so there's not much I can complain about. Even though some locations, the only location which changed time was obviously the golfing location, but it's its own business. So yeah, it just means like some of the scenes ended up being a little bit different than I intended, but either way, I'm super grateful. But yeah, I guess I'll see you if you're going to hear me in my next commentary, which would probably be the Nothing Goes. But I'm hopefully planning to do 3 more features, hopefully next now, because I finished all my shorts. But yeah, bye.